Good afternoon, and I would like to introduce our next session and our next panel members here. We are going to be talking about Beyond Events, Engaging 365 or Someone Else Will. And our panel members are Tom Burton from Sparks Interactive, who's the president, and we have Aaron Handel, CEO of Banker Stuff, and Patrick Egan, CTO from Sparks Interactive. We'd like to take this opportunity before they present, and we'd like to tell our virtual audience that they are able to tweet on tag VES110W, and we'd like to reach out to the physical audience right now to see if they have any questions, anything that they would like to ask the speakers before they begin their talks, and to see if there's anything that you'd like to specifically hear about from them. So if you'd raise your hand, we can reach out to you.
I know we're running a little bit late from the lunch, so I thought, maybe we could take some time and see who's out there now. Do we have people from associations out there in the physical audience? What about corporations? How about event planners? So some event planners. How about IT people, IT professionals? So is there anything in particular, while we're waiting for the lunch to break, we want to get the session started, is there anything that anybody would like to volunteer that you're looking for in the session or that you're most curious about? Has anybody ever done a virtual event before? Or, okay, we got a couple. We have quite a few. Is there anybody who wants to do one this year and is just sort of gathering information? How about a 365 environment? Anybody done that yet? Okay, going to do it. Good. Well, we've got a...
So we have a good cross-section.
Yeah, we have a nice mix here.
Well, we can wait another minute and then probably just get started.
Okay. Well, let's just go for it then.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. They'll just have to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
So my name's Tom Burton. I'm the CEO of Spark Interactive. And what Spark Interactive does is we build for ourselves and for others what we call event-driven communities. And I'll explain more in a minute what that is. But really, other than just an online event, it's a perpetual, it's an online environment that acts as really a hub for people to come back to over and over and over again. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today. Aaron?
Hi, I'm Aaron Handel. I'm the CEO of Banker Stuff. I've been a physical event planner. I'm a CMM and a CMP. I've done events for about 20 years. I've focused exclusively the last 5 years on online event delivery, so technology, webinars, webcasts, virtual conferences. We've done over 5 virtual conferences, and that's the typical virtual conference that's a day or two with the archive period that's meant to mimic a physical conference. We're launching the Banker Stuff 365 in Q1 of this year, and we're really hoping for a different and new and good experience with that. Patrick?
And I'm Patrick Egan. I'm the CTO of Spark Interactive. So for the past 10 years, I've been building online communities, and for the past 7, have been hosting and managing virtual events. I think when we got started, there were very few people doing virtual events. And over the past seven years, we found that the real key to doing this is having a completely interactive 365-day-a-year environment where people can come back again and again and again to watch your shows and to participate and to build a community from there. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about how we've done that and some of the keys that we've found that make it successful for everyone.
So we've been, attending the presentations over this morning and listening to, the different people present about their experiences and their case studies of doing events. And one of the challenges that we keep hearing over and over is, well, how do you maintain that momentum, right? So you have a big roller coaster, you have a big event, an online event, there's a lot of activity, and then it's over. And then and really the solution tends to be, well, there's an on-demand period, or there's a period of time where they can continue, people can continue to come and watch the presentations. But really the challenge is how do you go way beyond on-demand and just really make it a complete year-round 365-day revenue-generating environment? And that's what we're going to talk about, is really going from event to community. And at the same time, expanding your member base, getting them to become engaged. There's talk about, do online events cannibalize physical events? Well, a big part of expanding your member base in the community is lead generation, which turn into delegates and people that attend physical events as well as people that attend the online events. Another challenge that we've heard a lot of talk about is, how do I use social media to drive my community/events? How do I use search engine optimization? Is search engines important? How do I use that to get more traffic? And overall, how do I manage all of that? So these are some of the challenges that we're going to talk about today, and really what we see collectively are addressed by a 365-day environment.
Cost, don't forget about costs.
Yeah, cost is another one. Good point, Patrick. How is this, it's nice that you want to do a virtual event or a community, but realistically it needs to be practically affordable and practically relatively easy to implement and easy to maintain, which all relates to cost and affordability. So that's another really key point as well, is how do I address that challenge? As Patrick said, we've been in the business for almost 10 years doing events and communities. And I wanted to just define a couple of terms here because we're going to be throwing them around, and I think they may be a little bit different than what we've seen in some of the other presentations. Our definition of community is an interactive online perpetual hub, and hub is a key word. It's a place that people are coming back to that attracts new members and compels them to interact and return over and over and over. And an event-driven community is a community that's driven and fueled by interactive online events. So the two screenshots that are on this slide are two of our communities. One's called CM Crossroads, the other's called Agile Journal. And if you went to that site right now, you would see that there's about 10,000 people right now roaming around that community or those communities. In fact, probably more, closer to about 15,000 people roaming around those communities. If you come tomorrow, you're going to see 15,000 people roaming around those communities. Now, we may have an event next month or next week or what have you, which will fuel this, but meanwhile, there's activity and there's information that's going on there. And just to give you an idea, these communities, just those two themselves, generate about $1 million a year. And only about 20% of that actually is related to true, show virtual events. It's related to a lot of other things that occur over the course of the year. So, what we found is community and events, it's hard to separate them. If you're going to do an event and have an event strategy and certainly make it perpetual and really a business, then you inherently end up over in community. If you're going to go out with the idea of creating a community, but you're not thinking about how you're going to weave events into there, your community's not really going to do what you want it to do. So we found it's not really optional. The two really fit together and you have to use them together. And using them smartly together is really the key to kind of get this perpetual engine going over and over. Sort of what we consider the anatomy of an event-driven community is, and you notice here that a lot of these arrows are sort of pointing back into the hub. The hub is really a key piece here because we want to keep driving people back to a centralized location, whether that's for an event or whether that's for them to watch something or to read something or to socialize with somebody. Whatever the case may be, we want to drive them back to the community. And there's really kind of three key parts that we found make up a good community. So certainly at the bottom is the virtual events and potentially any virtual training sessions. And we're going to talk a little bit later about what are the different types of virtual events. It's not just a show, like a multi-hour, multi-day show. An event can be a 15-minute video podcast. It can be really anything that would be of interest to somebody that they'd want to come and see. The second piece of it is, and a lot of this comes out of the residual of the event, is good content and ideally rich media or multimedia content that people can come and watch, read, or what have you at any time. That's very good, that's referenceable. We put a lot of emphasis on our communities on video and rich media. A lot of that video sometimes comes out of events, but it's also a very key piece of the community. And we'll talk a little bit about search engine optimization later on. It's a great way to improve your Google ranking and improve your overall SEO capabilities. And then the third piece is the social network and the socialization that occurs. And so when people come, how are they interacting? How are they talking to others? How are they working with their peers? All of those things fit into what we're calling our community and social network. And those three pieces really need to work together. They're not independent. They really are integrated together, which make a really good, vibrant community. And I'll just quickly touch on, you see Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, some of the more traditional social media channels. Those are really key to drive traffic and to drive interest into your communities. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how you do that and how you use them. As you probably know, there's a lot of confusion about how to best use social media and the return on investment of that. And there's really a clear strategy of what you need to do as how it fits into the community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Erin, who is actually implemented and is implementing an event-driven community. She's doing it with a specific platform and a specific situation, but I'll turn it over to her and let her kind of go through some of the things that she's doing.
Great, thank you so much. BankerStuff 365 is launching in Q1 of this year. It is a virtual platform, a virtual environment, and the 365 is obviously 365 days a year. So if you haven't yet gone out and bought a website, that's yourcompany365.com, I would suggest you do that today. It's a virtual environment, meaning it's event-driven community, as Tom was saying, complete with sponsor booths, networking lounge, auditorium, resource center, all the things that you've seen here today that you might have seen at a physical event or at a virtual event. The difference is it's always on, it's always available. Sponsor ability to show videos, connect to live webcasts, do product demos right from the booth. So the sponsor is getting the ability to then interact with the people who are coming in and watching their demos. It's not just an information push, it's really a two-way communication street because they're in the booth and they're interacting with them as they're in there. The booth serves also as a microsite. We have with On24 what's called direct-to-booth registration. So that means anybody who sponsors a booth in our 365 can then send a link, a URL link, to any of their membership, any of their customers, any of their prospects, and have them link directly to their online booth. So that's a pretty good feature for corporate sponsors. Here's just a few screenshots. Now, this is not live yet. It's a prototype. This is the home page. And you can see we have sponsors up at the top, logos. It's branded. These are some of the sponsors that are in there now. You can see the BankerStuff booth is one as well, an information resource booth there. Next slide is also some sponsors that are in there now. And these are the folks that we're going to help drive people to come and see them, to come and see what they have to offer. And again, this is something that's brought together with the banking industry. So, we're all here for a common purpose. We're here to learn about what's new in the banking industry, to get information, to get education in this industry. This is just a screenshot of the auditorium. So this is where they go to get their sessions. And this is a V card, for example, so that you can actually see who else is online. And as Tom was saying, there's 15,000 on any given day. That would be great if ours is that successful. But this is how they can interact with each other in the environment. They can start a chat. They can send an email. They can get information on people who are there with them in the environment. So our business model is a paid-for business model. As Tom was saying, this is a revenue-generating opportunity for your association, for your company. There's information in there, and that's free. This includes the Expo Hall, Sponsor Information, and Resource Center. And it's free because it's information, and it's free because you want to drive the most traffic to them, because the corporate sponsor is paying to be a part of this, so you want to get as many people to this information as you can. The education is paid for. Now, this includes BankerStuff webinars that we would host in our auditorium. BankerStuff has a line of webinars that we do. We do over 150, and this is paid for education. Sponsors can purchase one of 3 levels, and this determines how many webcast, ads, newsletter exposure the sponsor will receive. BankerStuff provides a relevant audience for the sponsors through bi-weekly newsletters. So we're helping drive traffic to the sponsors, to the information, to the education. And in turn, if the sponsors then help drive the traffic, everybody's benefiting, again, from this community happening all the time.
I think a good point on that before you go on is the sponsor is not just signing up for a show or for a specific event. They're signing up for the whole year.
Right.
So this is a yearly program that they're putting together, you're putting together with them, of which they have a number of touch points that they can...
Throughout the year, yes.
The year,
They've got a number of touch points. So if they're doing a product launch in, Q1, they can choose for that to be a time when, you know, we pay special attention to them through newsletters and so forth. So the value proposition for members, or you can call this clients, customers, again, it's the online hub of information and education in your industry. We're in the banking industry, so we want to make sure that we've got the best white papers, the best content, the best vendors in the industry, because we want the bankers to come in and really say, wow, I can do everything at the Banker Stuff 365. I can go in, I can get some information, I can meet with people, I need a new vendor on something, I can actually go in and make contacts without having to try and find all that information, you know, all over the place. So you're really creating the marketplace for your industry. You've got the ability to capture attendee data for sponsors in your organization. Now this is really huge, I think, and very unique to these virtual environments where you're going in, you're having attendees go in, they're filling out information in the registration form, they go into a booth, and that booth sponsor knows who they are, what they looked at, how long they stayed there. They can really gauge, you know, what white papers are doing the best, you know, what thought leadership is doing the best, you know, what are people looking at. So you're giving them a wealth of business intelligence by having them in here, and instead of, you know, just pointing them to a website or something. Again, possible substitute for Yellow Pages resource directory. I don't know if any of you work with associations and you give your members, you know, literally a book that has your vendors in it, and, you know, somebody opens up the book and looks at a vendor, and that vendor has no idea who's looking at them, why, and what for. So, you know, it's really meant to be a very powerful substitute. And you can reach members that can't travel to events, members and clients. So our event strategy in the 365, webinars are paid for education delivered from Banker Stuff in the auditorium. Webcasts are free information delivered from sponsors within their booth. So again, in a webcast, it's free information, but there is an understanding that there's probably going to be some talk about their product, maybe a very, you know, slight sales pitch. You know, you're going in there. That's what you go in. You know that you're going to get that when you go into a free webcast. And then we do live stream as well, broadcast from either auditoriums or booth, it can be from anywhere, at a live physical event to an online audience. Now this could be paid or free. And I'm going to show you just a quick screenshot of a live stream. This was a physical event that we went to where we streamed live just like we're doing today, and we delivered this content to a virtual audience. And that we're also going to be doing from our 365 from various locations in the environment, auditorium, booth, basically anywhere you can stick a link, you can live stream. Now I'm going to turn it over to Patrick to talk about the event types.
So we're talking about the different types of things that occur in your 365 environment. And the focus used to be on the event, the one event, your one show that you're going to do annually or maybe twice a year. But when we talk about a 365 environment, it needs to be a 365 event environment. You need to be running not only your main event, but webcasts, like we mentioned, throughout the year, live streams, could be a face-to-face conference, interviews with people, live channels. Thinking about the different types of events, if you go even to a sports event of some sort, your channels could be all of the people in the audience that are giving their view of the event that's taking place. So, or a video radio show. After your live event, for example, you might want to conduct a video radio show with people so they can talk to the speakers or to the sponsors. You know, meet them in the green room and carry on the conversation a little bit further. And just like you do with a regular radio show, let them participate, let them get on the air. So these types of events are the things that take place that fill in the space in between your different events. So maybe you run a main event at one point of the year and a second event in the summer. Throughout that time, what is your audience doing? They want to keep engaging with you, and they want to keep engaging with each other. So in order to keep them active and alive, you bring them back again and again and again to your 365 environment where they're going to watch another event. And then what actually happens is that you may not have started out to build a community, but they come back again and again to this place they call home. It's their center of the universe for whatever topic it is they're talking about. And they've become community members. Instead of attendees, now they're community members, and you know everything about them. You know their browsing habits, you know their interests, their likes and dislikes, you know the things that they share with other people. This becomes very valuable information as you start to build this community.
Before you jump from there, Patrick, as you brought up earlier about affordability, you know, sometimes you go back to that previous slide, you look at all that and you go, oh my God, that looks like it could be hugely difficult and expensive, and I have to have a whole production team and all of this. And it turns out, especially with some of the technologies that are available today, that's not really the case. True? I mean, this can be done relatively affordably and, you know, relatively easier to do.
That's true. I mean, just looking around the building here today, and a lot of people see a lot of very expensive cameras, but putting together a virtual 365 event doesn't take a lot of gear. You can give people their iPhone app to be able to broadcast live from the audience. You know, we could have had all of you broadcasting us as well too, and switch between channels. So it can be done very affordably, and you don't have to worry about, well, it's going to add on double the cost of my in-person event, but it's going to give you additional value for your sponsors. It's going to give you additional value for your attendees as well too. Where are they watching your presentations? For example, since we are streaming this live today, someone could be out in the hall at the internet kiosk and watching it just as well. I noticed in a presentation I was at earlier, someone was sitting in that presentation watching a presentation that was taking place in this room instead. So those types of things that you're giving to your attendees as well as your sponsors really drive up the benefit. It doesn't have to be an add-on. Well, you know, we're cannibalizing our in-person show by adding on a virtual event. It's really driving the benefit up. So there's been a lot of talk about social media and SEO as well too. I think that, I don't know the numbers, Tom, you mentioned earlier, there's some billions of dollars that are being funneled into social media, and I think that a lot of people don't really know what to do. I know they think that, well, we're going to use social media to publicize our event, but really what you want to do is drag it all back to your center of the universe. You want to really leverage your social media to drive everyone back to you. And, you know, not just putting a button on the event viewer that says, yeah, chat or tweet live to your friends, but also let everyone see what everyone else is doing. I heard a few people talking about SEO earlier as well too, and I was surprised to hear the statement that SEO doesn't matter anymore. And I'd like to challenge that pretty greatly. I think that in any type of event or any type of online community, you're really going to have to value the SEO, the search engine optimization of your community. For those of you who don't know what the term means, to really look for the inbound traffic. You're not always going to go out and send emails or direct mails to people and get them to come to your site. And those are the people that you know already. What about the people that you don't know that are interested in your topic? Well, what's important now is we talked about having built this community, which is almost a byproduct of having the social media community, the social media events going on. But now you've got this community with a lot of rich information. The people have been chatting amongst themselves, they've been posting their own blogs, they've been participating in forum discussions. That information is now out there for the world to see, and it's about your topic. You now have a very rich environment that has information about the topic that you're going to present in your live event or in your virtual event. So, and like I mentioned, you know, Google and Bing. I mean, those are you can't fight Google. I think as much as people would like to, you're always going to have to worry about what Google thinks about your website and your environment and your event. So looking for really leveraging that type of content is very important as well.
And just to touch on that a little bit more is, you know, if you look at this as a community or as even a marketing tool, you know, a lot of companies spend a lot of money on their search engine optimization strategy and how are they going to get to the top of Google and, you know, how do they stay there. This is really a great way to get there and stay there and not be the effect of, well, Google just changed their algorithm so my keywords aren't right anymore and I'm not showing up on the front page anymore. Because you're staying there because of thought leadership, which is, you know, the search engines pay a lot of attention to that. And just to give an example on that, the CM Crossroads or the site that's there, if we publish a new piece of content and you go out to Google News in about, what, 4 or 5 minutes?
4 minutes.
It'll be there. And the reason that it's, and at the top, it'll be at the top of the list. And the reason is because Google has recognized that as being a thought leadership, credible environment, and they give a lot of credence to that. So there's a lot of byproducts out of building the community and building the, the vibrance and continued life in there, even just beyond the direct revenue generating, but also the indirect marketing piece that everyone's really striving for, and is kind of an elusive thing, is, how do I really maximize what I'm doing on inbound marketing?
It's not, we're talking about the SEO part of it, which is really inbound, but I mentioned too about all the information that you're gathering about this community as well. Because it's a vibrant community now and you have people returning again and again, you're not just gathering statistics or analytics about what they did in your event. I mean, it's very crucial to know, for example, that during your event they watched particular sessions and what questions they asked. But your sponsors are really curious about not just that, but what they did before that occurred. If they came to their booth, they'd probably like to know also that over the past 6 months, they've gotten really warmed up to that idea. They started out, they didn't even log in the first time they came to the site. They roamed around, they looked at a few things, they downloaded some white papers, they watched a video that was on a topic that was important to them. And over the last 6 months, they've got a little bit more warmed up to that. And by the way, 2 weeks ago, they participated in a webcast of one of your sponsors, and they downloaded several of their web papers as well, or white papers as well. And then today, right before they joined your event, they posted a couple of comments on a post in the forums that had something to do exactly with this particular topic that you presented about. And I heard earlier somebody challenged the idea that the ROI on a virtual event is something like a year, and you shouldn't turn those leads over to a salesperson right away because it's probably a waste of time. It's at the top of the funnel. But if you take a regular event lead, it probably is at the top of the funnel. But if you take that other lead that I just mentioned, where you've been tracking the guy for 6 months prior for them watching your webcast or participating in your live event, that's a hot lead. That's something that your sponsors are willing to pay for as well too. They might go and purchase a lead for $30 that's just about your trade show or about your event. But if they had that detailed information that gives you detailed analytics, psychographics and demographics about that person, they're likely to pay triple or 4 times that much. And these are things that we have in place with our current customers as well. So it's in action today.
I think that's back to you, Erin.
This is me. Getting started on your 365 environment, talk to the providers that are here, get to know what their products offer, how flexible they might be, what you might be looking for. Put together your plan for sponsorship. I think there's actually a session about sponsorship later today. What are the levels, pricing, what's your marketing plan? Survey your membership and audience. Do they know what this is? Do you think that they would attend it? Are you seeing dropping numbers in your current physical events and looking for something else to engage those folks that you're losing, as well as getting a new audience? Start recording and capturing your content now. So the webinars that you do, even if you're not streaming live, videotape your physical event sessions so that when you do your 365, you've got already some content that you can just plug in there. Live stream your organization's physical events. You're already doing them, you're already paying for them. Why not capture that, and why not open it up to a bigger audience? So in terms of internal organization, key players, event planner, and that's my background, so I listed them first. Marketing, IT, membership, product manager, the driver, owns the strategy, tactics, concept, and that could be from any functional area. I'm a big believer in there's got to be one person who's the go-to person, and then your senior management's got to be involved as well. And Tom and Patrick and I were talking about this. This is really an organizational-wide strategy. It's not just an event strategy, because you do need all these departments to help you out with what you're doing. And another contrarian idea that Tom and Patrick and I were talking about is if you're doing an event, I know I actually like my events to end. One of the reasons why I like being an event planner is because we're doing an event in December and then it's over, and then I never have to think about it again. So we're asking event planners to stop the way they do business and have that event never end. And that's mind-boggling to me because, again, we're wired so differently. We're wired to have something over and done with. So this is a very different concept that we're talking about today. So I guess we're at Q&A.
And don't forget, all of you online, if you want to tweet your questions using the hashtag VES110W, and hopefully somebody's checking the tweet board for us.
We see a question over here. Okay.
So when you have a 365-day-a-year event, and it looks like in yours there's exhibit booths, are you requiring the sponsors to have staff available during certain hours every day of the year, so if someone happens to come in, that they can respond to them in real time, or is it more if someone visits their booth, they send them an email, and then it's not real-time interaction if they go in, say, just a random day out of the year?
That's a good question. I'll take a first stab.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
What I would say is if they're posting a new white paper, doing a webcast, or that there's something changing in their booth, and we're going out and we're announcing that to our marketing list, that I would say definitely be prepared for heavier traffic. And these guys could probably talk more about what happens when they're not staffed.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that we've done in the past as well too is we've even allowed the vendors to leverage their booth environment one step further, where not only do we promote something, but they might use the booth for a meet the developer or meet the sponsor or something like that, where they'll do it on an ad hoc basis. But when the times they're not there, we also utilize technology to do things like if you click the button to chat live, you've seen this on other websites where you live chat with a representative, it will contact them through whatever means they've decided. They might use AOL Instant Messenger or Skype or something like that. And no matter where they are, it'll ping them and say there's someone in your booth now that wants to talk to you. They can jump in. Or if they want to ignore it, they can leave a message or whatever, or forward it to someone else. But using that booth is really up to the sponsor. But you want to encourage them to utilize it more. If they're paying for it, it's definitely going to be the place that people are going to go to find out about their products or their services.
Hi. Tom, you mentioned that at any one time 10,000 people wouldn't be unusual on the platforms. What's that as a proportion of the total community?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
So what is the 10,000 as a proportion of the total community?
Well, it is the community. So if you go to one of these, the sites, right, which are, again, the event-driven community, so it's a community, even though there's nothing going on today, for example, there's no event going on today, but there's probably about, if you go look, there's a little counter over there, there's probably about 10,000 people roaming around, maybe watching a previous event, reading a white paper, chatting in a forum, collaborating with somebody else. Now on event days, when we actually have any form of event, that number will go up. So you'll see that go up on those, it'll go up some, but it's not like a huge peak and valley, it's more leveled out.
But I think your question is that what's the size of the overall community in that?
Like it's 10% on all the time.
That particular community is about 200,000.
Yeah.
200,000.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's I was about to say, wait a second, because I know that every single message board I've ever looked at, it's usually a 1 in 10 ratio at best.
Yep.
Yes.
So in other words, if you've got 100,000 members, at best, 10% of them are active members.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. The point I was trying to bring up with that really is that people are coming back over and over and over, right? Whether it's a 10% or whatever, they are coming back. And that's really a key metric, are people coming back, and of course are new people coming in. Because there's got to be a reason to come back.
Well, and key to that too as well, when you look at the stats, it's people versus logged in users. So you'll see those 10,000, and then the really active people are the much smaller number who are going to be posting and active. But because of some of the metrics that we're using, the one time that they get there and post, that we tag them at that point, and then we track them throughout the year, so that even though they're not logged in currently, we still kind of know who they are.
Hi, my organization, excuse me, we launched our first virtual event last year, and we had buy-in from senior management on the way, all the way down, including web services. And as we created our strategy, we talked about the 365, and we revisited the 365 topic following our virtual event. Now what we're finding is that we have buy-in for the actual virtual event, but the 365 is becoming a threat to a way that we do business internally, specifically to different departments or different groups. How do we educate that the 365 is not necessarily a threat, but an enabler, especially to web services?
We were just talking about this. We actually drew a little circle on it, literally like on a piece of paper.
I'll touch on that first. And I think, first of all, as Erin pointed out, you have to have certainly that senior management commitment to say that this is strategic to our business and to our company, and that while people may feel uncomfortable or even threatened, we'll work through that. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is, and I'd be interested in some of the specifics, what are the things that people feel threatened about, right, from the different groups? What is it that they're concerned about? And look at those and say, okay, what is and then be able to compare and contrast the advantages and disadvantages of that. And I think a good point is not to try and hide those concerns, but hit them head on and deal with them. Because I think the fact of the matter is whether you do it now or later on, it's where you probably know that's where you need to go. And it's not sort of a optional or sort of a, well, maybe, it's just a fad type of thing. It's more of a longer term strategic direction. So it's important to really kind of look at and hit those things head on and deal with them.
We were saying the nucleus of this is that you've always got things going on, and it's not just an event. It's a new membership offering, change in a policy that affects your members, so that you have this circle that's the 365 days a year, and in the virtual environment you have things going on throughout that time. And now the outer circle is your entire organization that's feeding into that 365. So really it does have to be an enterprise-wide strategy at your company. And one of the things that we were saying is, if you look at it, for example, from an event perspective, you can have your annual event in January and start talking about that in, July of the year before, and start getting marketing in there to help feed, this is what we're going to do this year. And you can actually even poll the people who are going to your 365 and get feedback on things. We're going to launch a new logo, vote on your favorite one. You can really tie in so many things that your organization is doing throughout the year, and everybody has to be involved though, and you really have to commit to it, and you really have to focus on it. If anybody's got a LinkedIn group or a Twitter group and you never post or tweet, you quickly realize that this is lame and nobody's going. So you really just have to commit to it and drive it.
We launched our first virtual event last year, and it is a 365, and it's been a lot of fun and a lot of work as well. We would like to know, I know, Erin, you mentioned that you stream live from a physical event and upload it, and you're doing the virtual as well. Do you outsource that video production team, or do you set up a computer and encode and software, or how do you handle that?
We outsource that. And like you said, there's three components. There's the video, there's the audio, and then there's the data. And they encrypt it so that it can stream live.
So we do the same thing as well too. We actually do it ourselves, and it's an it depends type of situation where we might have, depending on the level of expertise of speakers on now, level of expertise of the person that's going to be running the stream. We also provide as a service when we go to another customer that will provide the streaming for them. So, sorry. For live streaming, it depends. So if we're doing a hybrid event, so for example, we've done one recently with Unisphere. I've used Unisphere, I've used On24, I've used an Expo, and looking at Expos too. But we also use Livestream and Ustream. If you're going to be doing a straight video type of production, things like Livestream are very, very effective. And if you have somebody who's sitting with a laptop, they can manage everything just like the gentleman over here is doing today too.
So just a couple of quick questions. One is, do you have any feedback from your sponsors on the quality of the leads that they perceive that get generated through this virtual booth channel versus they went to a physical show and got leads? So that would be one. The other is more, looks like you've built a pretty successful community. What are some of the best tactics that you're seeing you're able to use for marketing your events to drive more users to your community to attend those events? So a couple of thanks.
Well, I'll answer the last one first, and then is marketing the events, and Patrick can certainly touch on this as well. Title, abstract, what it's about is key. You have a boring title and something that doesn't look too exciting and no one's going to come. So it has to be marketed, but again, as important as like how much what your reach is how much does it impinge and how much does it really get them excited to attend and go. And we've learned a lot over the years, and what's the best strategy on that. You want to touch on that?
It all comes back to some of the analytics that you capture as well too. So for example, over time, like I mentioned, I've been running online events now for 7 years, and I have a really good idea of who likes to go to events now. Of this 200,000 people, I may know that, well, there's only those 5,000 that really like to participate in online events. So we'll target those more often than not, and people will start falling into that bucket. But you'll also want to target your extra community on an ongoing basis as well too, to see if you can drag some of them in.
I might say that when you're at a physical event, the follow-up might be different than when you're looking at leads within a 365. So for example, if I'm at a booth and I meet you face to face, I'll probably just call you and you'll know who I am and we can take it from there. But in a 365, I might actually know more about you than I do if I meet you, because I'm seeing all your buying behaviors throughout the year. So then I might target you with a different type of campaign than just calling you and saying, by the way, I knew that you were up, you couldn't sleep at 3 a.m. last night and you were downloading a white paper. It's a little bit awkward. So, I think the tactic would be different. The way that you approach it would be definitely different. We also use a lot of webinars and webcasts to market things. So I might say, if I'm marketing an annual event, I might say the top 10 presentations from last year, we're going to have a webcast on those in the 365 this year. So then you're showing your best content from last year. You can't miss it this year, so sign up. So throughout the year, you can keep touching on that specific content and then have it lead into your physical event.
Yeah, that's a topic that we call the Wheel of Fortune, actually, where leading up to your live event, you're going to want to start preparing them by showing them some short videos or other types of interactive materials that's on the same topic. And going back to the sponsors issue, we do have how we got to the point of the analytics in the first place. So our sponsors really like the idea that they can get a lead and not know that, well, you walked into my booth and I swiped your badge and grabbed a t-shirt, but that you looked at a couple of white papers, you downloaded our data sheet, you talked to our online rep, and oh, by the way, here's the whole chat of that. So you don't even have to, I'm sure you've gotten these calls from people, it's like, yeah, I see that you attended our booth 3 months ago, and what do you want to know? Whereas now you can go and say, hey, I know you had this chat with our guy last week, and you were asking specifically about these things, and so now
I know what you did last summer,
yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank our panel today, and I'd like to let everyone know that the next session is taking place in room 319 and 320 for the Town Hall Forum. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.